Hi, and welcome to Moments with Marla. This is Marla Noel with OC Growth Advisors, and I am talking to Diane Mondini from Caring Companions at Home. So, welcome, Diane, and I just love your accent. So, tell me about where that accent comes from.
Thank you very much, Marla, and thank you for having me. My accent comes from England. I was born and raised in England, but my father was in the Royal Air Force, so we traveled every 18 months. We went to a different base. We were stationed in various countries and eventually ended up in the United States.
And how long ago was that? How long ago did you come to the United States?
I came to the United States in 1960, then we all went back, and I emigrated in November 63, a little bit before the Beatles.
I know you were married and you have a wonderful son. Can you tell me about your husband and what happened to him?
My husband passed away several years ago. We were married very young, and we left Dayton, Ohio, and went to Baltimore, Maryland, because he went to Johns Hopkins Medical School. He was one of the youngest people to ever graduate. He'd skipped 2 years of college, graduated from Ohio State after 2 years, went to Johns Hopkins Medical School. We then went to New York Hospital, Cornell Medical Center, and unfortunately, he passed away in his residency. Very, very sad, a long time ago.
I know you have an amazing son. Why don't you tell me a little bit about him?
Well, my son was 6 years old when his dad died. So I basically raised him alone, along with the help of my parents. We all moved in with my parents, so he really had three parents instead of just one. And he was always very bright from the very beginning. So he ended up going to prep school and then to Georgetown School of Foreign Service and then to SAIS, which is Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. He ended up as a diplomat in the State Department in the Clinton administration, and from there on he has just gone around the world and done all kinds of wonderful things. He currently works for ICANN, which is the company that runs the internet, and they just put him in charge of all of the European countries. So he has 39 countries who report to him, and he's based in Brussels. So I can't wait to go and visit.
Well, you have firsthand experience of senior care because you had the opportunity to have your mom live with you. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your mother?
Well, my mother lived with me for 8 years. My parents lived in Knoxville, Tennessee for 35 years, and my father died. So my mother was alone in Tennessee. I actually placed caregivers with her in Tennessee, and she was quite active and leading a fun life. And then she got to a point where she had macular degeneration and she couldn't see. And so I thought it was time to bring her to California to live with me. And she actually came kicking and screaming. And at the beginning, it was a little difficult. But she lived with me for 8 years, and she had a wonderful life. She never would have survived that long if she had not come to live with me and been taken care of by my caregivers during the day when I was working.
And I understand that an awful lot of people know your mother because whenever you went anywhere, your mother went with you. So where were some of the things that you went to?
Absolutely. My mother went to a lot of different places with me. I would take her to the yacht club. I would take her to the Laguna Playhouse. She was in the Balboa Island Parade. She went to the Chalk Follies. She was always tooling around in the golf cart. She actually had a wonderful time, and I'm very happy about that.
So, Diane, you have an amazing business and your company is so good at taking care of people. Tell me, how many years ago did you start your business and how did you get started?
My business is now 22 years old, and before that I had worked in assisted living for 15 years. I worked in the corporate office of an assisted living company for 10 years and then went out into the field and worked in the actual facilities. I got my RCFE license to become an executive director. And it was about that time that I decided I was commuting too far, and seniors were very happy in the facilities, but I could see they'd be happier if they were in their own homes. I had a friend come back from Illinois, very frustrated because her mother had macular degeneration, lived on a farm, and she didn't know how to take care of her. So I said, well, why don't we bring the caregivers to her instead of putting her into a facility? And that's where I got the idea.
Great. And I know you do a great job with the families that you serve. Okay, so I know there were some difficult years. So why don't you tell me about what those were?
Well, through the years, there's been difficult times, but mainly when I first started my company, I had very little money, and I started it in my apartment all by myself. So there was a cash flow problem, but some of my clients helped me with that. And there were days that I would say, I can't do this, this is absolutely too hard. And then the next morning I'd wake up and say, absolutely, I can do this. And from there on, we moved ahead. I got too busy to have it in my apartment. I then was very concerned about moving into an office and how much it was going to cost. But I ended up taking the risk and doing that. And then the office has grown and grown and grown, and my staff has grown. And along the way, we've had a few troubles, but nothing major. And we've always had a very good reputation, and we just love working with our seniors.
So your company, Caring Companions at Home, has a great reputation. Tell me about what's important to you as far as taking care of the families you serve.
Well, first of all, we find out everything there is to know about the families and the client who needs the care. We do a complete assessment. I have RNs and gerontologists on staff, and they do a complete plan of care for each client. We then make sure that we give them the perfect caregiver. So we match them with somebody who can do everything they would like to have done, take care of them, and have the right personality to get along with them.
Good. And what have been some of the highlights of taking care of the families?
Well, we've had some pretty important clients that I can't mention, but we also have had a lot of wonderful experiences where we've been with them through their whole life, and even ended up going to the memorials and staying in touch with the families, and they all become like family.
So you get pretty close to them.
Very close, yes.
Tell me, what differentiates Caring Companions at Home from your competitors?
Well, first of all, we were one of the first companies in Orange County. There were only 6 of us when we started, and we are fully licensed by the state of California. Licensing was required as of January 2016. This means all of our caregivers are fully vetted with background checks, TB tests, training, and they're all actually registered with the state of California and covered by workers' compensation and all of the insurances. This keeps the client safe, and they do not become vulnerable to having a caregiver who maybe they find through a friend or a family member and is not with a company that is licensed.
So I know when I hired a caregiver, I was concerned about having somebody in my home, and that protects me and my asset, my house, in case there is a problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have all the insurances.
Diane, I know you do so much for the community. Tell me a little bit about some of your community involvement.
Well, through the years, I've always been involved in various charities. And several years ago, I was very involved with Hoag Hospital. I served on their 552 board. I helped raise funds for their new building. And I'm also involved with Children's Hospital and UCI Mind, doing research for Alzheimer's, and very involved with Alzheimer's Orange County, which supports everybody in Orange County with Alzheimer's. And I also support Wise Place, which is a homeless shelter for women in Santa Ana, and various other things. If I see something that needs help, I'll help them.
You are probably the busiest person I know. Tell me about some of your activities.
Well, along with running my business, which is almost a full-time job, actually more than a full-time job, I also am involved in several charities. I support various causes. I play pickleball. I like to play golf occasionally. I tap dance, very involved in the Chalk Follies for Children's Hospital, and numerous other things.
So tell me about the Chalk Follies, because I know you have an event once a year. What is that?
Well, for 25 years, we have been putting on a variety show called the Chalk Follies, and it's business leaders in the community who come together. None of them really have any talent, but by the end of the show, we're all singing and dancing and acting and raising a lot of funds for Children's Hospital. And through the years, I think we've raised over $11 million. This year, we were unable to have the actual show in person, so we did a virtual show and raised $850,000.
Wow, that's incredible. So one of the things that you're involved in is WPO, Women's Presidents Organization. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I've been a member of WPO for over a year now, and we started with a few people, and then we grew to 12 to 15 people, and I have to say these women are dynamic, and we meet once a month, and we talk about business, and we hear each other's problems, and we try to solve them. And I have to say, I leave those meetings every month feeling high, as if, and I say to myself, oh my goodness, if I could just be 40 years younger, what I could do, because it's very inspiring.